I stared at the glowing screen of my phone, my heart pounding. The message that had just popped up threatened to shatter the happiest moment of my life. You'll never be good enough for the Williams family. Anonymous. Cruel. And possibly true. I glanced up from my phone, forcing a smile as I met the expectant gazes of my family gathered around our worn dining table. The aroma of Mom's lasagna hung in the air, a comforting reminder of home. Well, don't keep us in suspense, Dana. My sister Rachel leaned forward, her eyes sparkling. What's this big news you promised? I took a deep breath, pushing the unsettling message to the back of my mind. This was supposed to be my moment. Our moment. Mark proposed. I blurted out, holding up my left hand to show off the modest diamond ring. We're getting married. Table erupted in cheers and congratulations. Mom wiped away a tear while Dad beamed with pride. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Mom said, reaching across to squeeze my hand. Mark's a lucky man. Dad nodded in agreement. He'd better treat you right or he'll have me to answer to. As the excitement settled, Rachel piped up. So when do we get to meet the in-laws? I bet they're thrilled. My smile faltered for a moment as I thought of the message on my phone. Actually, I haven't met them yet. Mark says they're particular. Particular? Dad's eyebrows furrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I shrugged, trying to keep my voice light. Oh, you know how some people can be. I'm sure once they meet me, everything will be fine. But as I looked down at my phone again, the words glared back at me. A chill ran down my spine as I realized this engagement might not be the fairy tale I'd imagined. The Williams family was about to become a very real part of my life, and I had a sinking feeling they weren't going to make it easy. I drummed my fingers nervously on the cafeteria table, waiting for Mark to join me for lunch. The anonymous message from last night still haunted me, and I needed answers. Hey, beautiful, Mark's warm voice snapped me out of my thoughts. He leaned in for a quick kiss before sitting down. You look worried. Everything okay? I took a deep breath. Mark, we need to talk about your parents. His smile faltered. What about them? I pulled out my phone and showed him the message. Someone sent me this last night. Is it true? Do your parents disapprove of me? Mark's face fell and he ran a hand through his hair. Dana, I'm so sorry. I didn't want you to find out like this. My heart sank. So it is true. Look, my parents are complicated. They have these ridiculous expectations about who I should marry. But it doesn't matter what they think. I love you and that's all that counts. Before I could respond, my best friend and coworker Emma plopped down beside us. Whoa, who died? You two look like someone just canceled Christmas. I filled Emma in on the situation. Her eyes narrowed as she listened. That's messed up. Have you met them yet, Dana? I shook my head. No, and now I'm not sure I want to. Emma leaned forward, a determined glint in her eye. No, that's exactly what you need to do. Meet them head on. Show them who you are and why Mark loves you. Don't let them judge you without even knowing you. Mark nodded slowly. Emma's right. We should arrange a dinner, introduce you properly. Once they meet you, they'll see how amazing you are. I bit my lip, uncertainty gnawing at me. What if they don't? What if they're horrible to me? Mark took my hand, his gaze intense. Then we'll face it together. My parents may not see it yet, but you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I won't let anyone come between us, not even them. His words warmed my heart, but a nagging doubt remained. As we finished lunch and headed back to our desks, I couldn't shake the feeling that meeting Mark's parents would be a turning point in our relationship, for better or worse. Emma caught up with me in the hallway. Hey, if you need backup for this dinner, just say the word. I've got your back. I managed a small smile. Thanks, I might take you up on that. As I sat back down at my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Dinner with my parents this Saturday. I love you. I stared at the message, a mix of dread and determination settling in my stomach. This was it, the moment of truth. I only hoped our love was strong enough to withstand whatever the Williams family might throw at us. My heart pounded as Mark and I approached the imposing iron gates of the Williams mansion. The manicured lawns and towering columns made me feel small and out of place. Ready? Mark squeezed my hand reassuringly. I nodded, forcing a smile. As I'll ever be. The door swung open, revealing Eleanor Williams in all her polished glory. Her smile was as cold as her pearls. Mark, darling. And you must be. Dana, was it? It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Williams, I said, extending my hand. She barely touched it before ushering us inside. Henry's in the study. Do come along. The house was a museum of wealth, crystal chandeliers, priceless artwork, and antiques that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Henry Williams stood as we entered, his handshake firm but his eyes appraising. So, this is the young lady who's captured our Mark's heart, he said, his tone unreadable. Dinner was a minefield of loaded questions and backhanded compliments. I tried to hold my own, speaking about my job and aspirations, but Eleanor's dismissive glances made it clear she wasn't impressed. An office worker from a modest family? Eleanor's voice dripped with disdain. Surely, Mark, you must be joking. What about that lovely Vanderbilt girl? Mark's jaw clenched. Mother, please. Dana is accomplished and kind. That's what matters. What matters, Henry interjected, is maintaining our family's standing. Have you considered how this union might affect our business relationships? I felt my cheeks burn with anger and humiliation. Enough was enough. Mr. and Mrs. Williams, I said, setting down my fork. I may not have your wealth or your connections, but I have something far more valuable, self-respect, and the love of your son, which should be enough for any parent who truly cares about their child's happiness. The room fell silent. Eleanor's face turned an alarming shade of red. How dare you lecture us on parenting, she hissed. You have no idea. That's enough. Mark stood abruptly. Dana, we're leaving. Mother, father, I'm disappointed in both of you. As we headed for the door, Henry called out, Mark, think about what you're throwing away. All for some girl who… The only thing I'm throwing away, Mark interrupted, is the illusion that my parents' approval matters more than my happiness. We left the mansion in tense silence. Once in the car, Mark turned to me, his eyes filled with remorse and determination. Dana, I'm so sorry. What they said, it's unforgivable. I took a deep breath, my mind reeling. What happens now, Mark? He took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. No, we fight for us. Together. My parents might not see your worth, but I do. And that's all that matters. As we drove away from the Williams estate, I felt a mix of relief and trepidation. The battle lines had been drawn, and I knew this was only the beginning of our struggle against Mark's family. But looking at Mark's determined profile, I also knew we'd face whatever came next side by side. I sat at my parents' kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. The events of the disastrous dinner with Mark's parents played on repeat in my mind. Honey, you've barely touched your food, Mom said, her brow furrowed with concern. I sighed, pushing my plate away. I'm sorry, I can't stop thinking about last night. Dad's eyes narrowed. What exactly happened at that dinner? I recounted the evening's events, my voice trembling as I described Eleanor's cutting remarks and Henry's thinly veiled disapproval. By the time I finished, Mom was holding my hand and Dad's face had turned an alarming shade of red. No one disrespects my daughter and gets away with it, he growled, standing up abruptly. Dad, what are you going to do? I asked, a mix of worry and curiosity in my voice. He paced the kitchen, his mind clearly working overtime. I may not have their old money, but I've built connections in this city. It's time I used them. Just then, Mark walked in, his face etched with worry. Dana, I'm so sorry about last night. I've been trying to talk to my parents, but they're not listening. Dad turned to Mark, his expression softening slightly. Son, I think it's time we had a chat about your family's business practices. Mark's eyebrows shot up. What do you mean? Let's just say I've heard some rumors, Dad replied cryptically. Rumors that could be very damaging if they were to become public knowledge. I felt a chill run down my spine. Dad, what are you planning? He smiled grimly. Nothing illegal, sweetheart. Just a little leverage. The Williams need to understand that they're not the only ones with power in this town. Mark looked torn between shock and admiration. Mr. Mitchell, I don't know what to say. Say you'll stand by my daughter, Dad replied firmly. Because things might get messy from here on out. I stood up, my heart racing. Dad, are you sure about this? We could be opening up a whole can of worms. He placed his hands on my shoulders, his gaze steady. Dana, you're worth fighting for. And if the Williams won't accept you willingly, we'll make them see reason. As I looked around at my family, Mom's worried but supportive smile, Dad's determination, and Mark's unwavering presence by my side, I realized we were at a crossroads. The next steps we took would change everything. Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. What's our next move? Dad's eyes glinted with a mix of pride and mischief. Now we start digging. Mark, I hope you're ready to learn some things about your family you might not like. As we gathered around the table, plotting our next steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to unleash something bigger than all of us. But with my family by my side, I was ready to face whatever came our way. I hunched over my computer screen, my eyes burning from hours of intense research. Emma leaned in close, her face a mix of shock and excitement. Dana, look at this, she whispered, pointing to a news article from 5 years ago. Henry Williams' company was involved in a massive environmental scandal. They covered it up, but the evidence is all here. My heart raced as I scanned the article. This is huge, Emma. But how did no one find out about this? She smirked. Money talks, honey. But it looks like the Williams aren't as untouchable as they seem. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Mark. Hey, can you meet me for lunch? We need to talk. A knot formed in my stomach. I've gotta go, Emma. Keep digging, okay? I found Mark in the cafeteria, his face pale and drawn. Dana, my father just called. He knows we've been looking into the company's past. I felt the blood drain from my face. How? I don't know, but he's furious. He threatened to cut me off completely if we don't stop. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Mark, there's something you need to know about your father's company. As I revealed what Emma and I had discovered, I watched the emotions play across Mark's face, disbelief, anger, and finally, a grim determination. We can't let them get away with this, he said, his voice low. But Dana, if we go public with this information, it could destroy my family. Are you prepared for that? The weight of the decision pressed down on me. This wasn't just about standing up to Mark's parents anymore. It was about exposing a massive corporate cover-up that had hurt countless people. Mark, I said, taking his hand, I love you, but this is bigger than us now. We have a responsibility to do the right thing. He nodded slowly. You're right, but we need to be smart about this. My parents are powerful and they won't go down without a fight. As we sat there, planning our next move, I realized we were at a point of no return. Path ahead was fraught with danger, but I knew in my heart it was the right one. Okay, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Let's do this. But we're going to need help. Mark squeezed my hand. We'll face this together. Whatever happens, I'm with you. As we left the cafeteria, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. We were about to take on one of the most powerful families in the city, armed with nothing but the truth and our determination. The battle ahead would be tough, but with Mark by my side and the support of my family, I was ready to fight. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The glittering chandeliers of the Williams Charity Gala seemed to mock me as I entered on Mark's arm. My heart raced, the weight of the evidence we'd gathered pressing against my ribs like a ticking bomb. Eleanor's eyes narrowed as she spotted us. "I'm surprised you had the audacity to show up," she hissed, her smile never faltering for the benefit of nearby guests. "Mother, please," Mark began, but I squeezed his hand, silencing him. "Mrs. Williams," I said, my voice steady despite my nerves, "we need to talk." "Privately." Henry appeared, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "Whatever you think you know, young lady, I suggest you keep it to yourself." "Or what?" I challenged, louder than I intended. Heads turned our way. Henry grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. "Listen here, you gold-digging little—" "Let her go." Mark's voice was ice-cold. "Now, father." As Henry released me, I saw my chance. "Ladies and gentlemen," I called out, my voice ringing through the suddenly quiet ballroom, "I have an announcement to make." Eleanor lunged forward, but Mark blocked her path. I took a deep breath and continued. "Henry Williams' company has been involved in illegal dumping of toxic waste, causing untold damage to local communities and ecosystems." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Henry's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "These are baseless accusations," he roared. "I have proof," I countered, pulling out a USB drive. "Every document, every covered-up report, it's all here." The room erupted into chaos. Porters who had been covering the gala swarmed forward, shouting questions. I caught glimpses of shocked faces, furious glares, and more than a few satisfied smirks from Henry's business rivals. Eleanor pushed past Mark, her carefully manicured nails digging into my arm. "You've ruined everything," she snarled. "I'll make sure you regret this for the rest of your miserable life." As security guards moved in to control the situation, I locked eyes with Mark across the room. His face was a mix of pain and pride, and I felt a moment of doubt. Had I gone too far? But then I remembered all the people who had been hurt by Henry's greed, all the lies and manipulation. I straightened my spine and faced the barrage of questions from the press. "The truth always comes out," I said firmly, "no matter how well it's hidden." As the night descended into a frenzy of accusations and denials, I realized this was only the beginning. The Williams empire was crumbling, but the fallout was far from over. And I had just painted a very large target on my back. The days following the charity gala were a whirlwind of chaos. I sat in my parents' living room, surrounded by my family as we watched the news unfold on TV. Williams Industries CEO Henry Williams faces multiple charges of environmental violations and fraud, the anchor announced. The company's stock has plummeted, and several high-profile clients have already severed ties. Dad muted the TV, turning to me with concern etched on his face. "Dana, are you okay? This is bigger than any of us anticipated." I nodded, though my stomach churned with a mix of vindication and anxiety. "I'm fine, Dad. We did the right thing." Just then my phone buzzed. It was Mark. "I need to see you. Now." I met Mark at our favorite coffee shop, now swarming with paparazzi hoping for a glimpse of the Williams family drama. His face was haggard, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "Dana," he began, his voice hoarse, "my father's been arrested. My mother's a wreck. Our family name is Mud." My heart clenched. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I never meant for—" "No," he interrupted, taking my hand. "You did exactly what needed to be done. But there's more." He slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents detailing threats against me, my family, and even Emma. The Williams allies were out for blood. "They're desperate," Mark explained. "They think if they can discredit you, somehow all this will go away." Fear gripped me. "What do we do?" Before Mark could answer, my phone rang. It was Emma, her voice frantic. "Dana, someone broke into my apartment. They trashed everything, left a warning. They're coming for you next." My mind raced. This was spiraling out of control. I looked at Mark, seeing my own fear reflected in his eyes. "We need to end this," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Once and for all." Mark nodded grimly. "I agree. But it means confronting my parents one last time. Are you ready for that?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I have to be. We've come too far to back down now. As we left the coffee shop, a sea of cameras and shouted questions assaulted us. In that moment, with Mark's hand firmly in mine, I realized the true cost of our actions. We had exposed the truth, but at what price? The final showdown with the Williams loomed before us, and I knew it would either make or break us. Everything we had fought for, every principle we stood for, would be put to the ultimate test. "Whatever happens," Mark said, squeezing my hand, "we face it together." I nodded, my resolve strengthening. Together. As we pushed through the crowd, I silently prayed we were strong enough for what lay ahead. The truth had come out, but the battle was far from over. The soft melody of "Here Comes the Bride" filled the air as I took my first steps down the aisle. My father, beaming with pride, squeezed my arm gently. As we walked, I caught glimpses of familiar faces: Emma, grinning from ear to ear, Rachel and Bill holding hands, and my mother dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. But my gaze was fixed on Mark, standing tall at the altar. His eyes shone with love and determination, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the past few months. As I reached him, he took my hands in his. "You look beautiful," he whispered. The officiant began the ceremony, but my mind drifted to the whirlwind that had brought us here. Confrontation with Mark's parents, the legal battles, the media frenzy, it all seemed like a distant nightmare now. Henry Williams had eventually pleaded guilty to multiple charges, facing years in prison. Eleanor, humbled by the scandal, had retreated from public life. Their empire had crumbled, but from its ashes something beautiful had emerged, our love stronger than ever. "I do," Mark's voice brought me back to the present. His words were filled with conviction, a promise of a future built on honesty and mutual respect. When it was my turn, I looked into Mark's eyes and saw our entire journey reflected there. "I do," I said, my voice clear and unwavering. As we sealed our vows with a kiss, cheers erupted from our gathered loved ones. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of triumph and peace. The reception, my father clinked his glass for a toast. "To Dana and Mark," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "You've shown us all what it means to stand up for what's right, to fight for love against all odds. I couldn't be prouder to welcome Mark into our family." Mark stood, pulling me gently to my feet. "Thank you, Tom. And thank you all for standing by us. Dana," he turned to me, his eyes glistening, "with you I've found my true home. Together we can overcome anything." I squeezed his hand, overcome with emotion. "Together," I echoed. As we swayed to our first dance, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. We had faced disapproval, scandal, and danger, but we had emerged stronger, our love tempered by adversity. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but I knew that with Mark by my side and the support of our true family and friends, we could face whatever challenges life threw our way. As the night wore on, surrounded by laughter and love, I realized that this wasn't just an ending, it was a beautiful beginning. We had fought for our happily ever after, and now, finally, it was ours to cherish.